13 million years ago, South America was a completely isolated continent. Without competition from outside predators, the local fauna grew to massive proportions, hunting in murky, tightly packed waterways where raw size dictated survival. The geography of the continent was dominated by the Pebas System. Instead of the fast-flowing Amazon River we know today, Western Amazonia was a colossal catchment area, a network of shallow wetlands functioning like a nutrient-rich inland sea. These warm, slow-moving waters created a biological crucible. In a high-biomass environment with limited oxygen in the swamp deposits, herbivores grew massive to avoid predation, and the predators scaled up alongside them to maintain their position at the top. The local prey reached absurd dimensions. Rodents grew to the size of modern buffalo, and the waterways were crowded with Stupendemys, a heavily armored turtle with a shell nearly 3 meters across that weighed upwards of 2,500 pounds. Successfully hunting in this landscape meant defeating biological armor. To crack a shell as thick as a Stupendemys, a predator needed a specialized mechanical solution designed for extreme crushing force. The apex evolutionary response to this landscape of walking tanks was Purussaurus brasiliensis, a giant caminine crocodilian that specialized in subduing the Miocene's megavertebrates. Fully grown, this predator reached 40 feet in length and weighed roughly 8 metric tons. This mass created a unique structural challenge. The animal needed a skeletal frame capable of supporting its 8-ton bolt while moving through soft mud and shallow water. Supporting that weight required a skeletal overhaul. While modern crocodilians only possess 2 sacral vertebrae to anchor the spine to the pelvic girdle, Purussaurus evolved a third one, creating a more robust connection between its axial skeleton and its limbs. This pelvic pivot provided the stability for a high walk. Instead of its belly dragging across the ground, the predator could lock its limbs in a more upright orientation, allowing an 8-ton ambush hunter to move through tidally influenced mudflats with surprising efficiency. Purussaurus was not merely an oversized crocodile, it was a heavy-duty biological machine, optimized for the high-biomass, low-energy terrain of the ancient Amazonian wetlands. The defining weapon of this predator was a blocky, reinforced skull engineered to generate a sustained bite force of 69,000 newtons. That is equivalent to 7 metric tons of pressure clamping down on a single point. This visualization shows the jaw of a Tyrannosaurus rex, the standard for prehistoric power. Yet biomechanical simulations indicate that Purussaurus delivered a bite force 4 times that of modern saltwater crocodiles, exceeding the crushing capacity of even the largest theropods. This output was an ecological requirement. The primary food source for an adult Purussaurus was the massive Stupendemys turtle. It takes this specific level of force to punch through several centimeters of solid bone armor. To manage this, the caiman relied on Pseudo-Ziphodont teeth. The base of each tooth was thick and conical to resist bending when hitting bone, while small serrations on the edges allowed the teeth to draw through flesh once the armor was breached. The jaw mechanics of Purussaurus functioned as a biological siege weapon. It was designed to maximize bone-crushing power, turning the Miocene's most protected herbivores into accessible calories. But generating 7 tons of force creates a massive biomechanical problem. When an 8-ton animal executes a death roll, the skull acts as the pivot point, absorbing rotational forces that would normally shatter a head. Using the death roll capability indicator, researchers model the skull as a cylindrical beam to calculate bone safety under extreme torsional stress. The elongated, sutured lower jaw and vaulted palate act as internal support arches, dissipating compressive forces to prevent the skull from warping. Purussaurus could deploy its lethal power because its skull was a specialized engineering solution, balancing extreme destructive output with the internal resilience needed to survive its own hunting tactics. However, this extreme size introduced a hidden biological tax. Maintaining an 8-ton frame requires massive caloric intake, which creates a permanent metabolic vulnerability. At its peak size, Purussaurus required at least 40 kilograms of meat every single day. This is 20 times the requirement of a modern American alligator, meaning the predator was only viable as long as the ecosystem remained highly productive. This high biological cost made the predator entirely dependent on these stagnant Pebas swamps. It needed shallow, calm water to hide its mass, and a constant, slow-moving supply of megavertebrates to provide a high-yield return on its hunting energy. The very adaptations that made Purussaurus physically invincible also made it a hostage to its environment. It was highly optimized for a world that required total geographic stability to function. That stability ended with the rapid tectonic uplift of the Andes. As the mountains rose, they cast long shadows over the continent and reorganized the way water moved across South America. This geological record shows how the rising mountains reversed the flow of ancient drainages. The stagnant, swampy Pebas System was drained, replaced by the early formation of the modern Amazon River system. This fast-moving water changed everything. The giant, slow-moving turtles and rodents that Purussaurus relied on could not survive in a high-energy river environment, and they were quickly replaced by smaller, more mobile species. Stripped of its giant prey, Purussaurus faced starvation. An 8-ton ambush predator cannot sustain its 40-kilogram daily diet by chasing small fish in rapid river currents. The energy spent hunting now outweighed the calories gained from the catch. Purussaurus was not defeated by a more powerful competitor, but by the collapse of the environment it was over-specialized to rule. Its disappearance proves that in deep time, raw physical power is always outlasted by the ability to adapt.